Well, time now for a money makeover, and as I promised earlier, we have fresh blood on the show. Janet Riddledell turns 50 this year, just about qualifying for the show, and she sees her coming of age as not just a reason to celebrate, but as an opportunity to give her finances a complete overhaul. Here she is.
I'm Janet Riddledell. I'm 49, and I've come to the Money Channel because I've reached that pivotal age when I need to look to the future and ensure my future security, and to assess my current financial position. I'm currently working full-time as a finance manager for a live sound company. I am single and I have no dependents. So I'm looking to the future. I intend to retire probably in about 10 years' time, and I'm looking to consolidate my financial position for then. Presently I have several contributory pension schemes, a with-profits bond and endowment assurance. I'm looking at other options, including equity ISAs, possible mortgage, possible death benefits and so on. And I need to consolidate all of those with a view to having a good income when I retire. I am concerned about entering the mortgage market because I would imagine that that would be quite difficult for someone who perhaps only has a working life of 10 years to go. I'm looking for a stable income that will enable me to do a little bit more than, say, a fixed state pension would do. Not grand and glorious holidays, but just to be able to afford to indulge whatever hobbies I have at the time and to live comfortably.
Well, stay with us because we'll be meeting Janet and her hand-picked financial expert, Paul Banfield, in the studio. Plus, Steve Ellis is back in with tips on how to polish up your credit rating. See you then. Welcome back to 50 Plus. Well, let's get straight down to business and meet in the flesh newcomers to the show, financial expert Paul Banfield and Janet Riddledell. Well, Janet, you're an interesting case study. You're an interesting, still a bairn, you're coming up for 50.
I am.
Pivotal age. Have you ever considered retiring, or is that, has that always been pie in the sky and you never thought, oh, put it later, put it off?
It was pie in the sky until about 10 years ago, and I think the dreadful reality dawned that at some stage in my life I was going to have to support myself without an income, and the dreaded pension scenario crept up, so I had to be a grown-up.
No, Paul, we saw just before the break that Janet's got green fingers, but how green has she been with her finances up to date? Are they quite healthy or are they just budding?
Well, she's been reasonably sensible. She's had help with or from her employer with contributions into her private pensions. She's made provision for a lump sum investment that is still up and running. So on the whole, very good. But obviously we'll be looking at different areas to improve.
So what are your financial concerns, Janet? Do you want more? Are you concerned that you haven't saved enough? Or
I'm very concerned that I didn't begin proper pension planning until I was about 35, when a guy that I worked for who was very financially orientated gave me a kick up the backside and said, "You want to take it a bit more seriously, girl." And I think at that point I was just about beginning to watch my parents struggle on a very fixed income. So I thought, yes, I'll do this, it sounds very sensible. And because as time's gone on and I've learned a little bit more, I'm not panicking exactly, but I am concerned that there's not going to be enough.
Paul, does she need a proverbial kicking at this moment in time?
Well, she does need to contribute more into her pension, which you're considering doing anyway, aren't you, Janet? There's other areas of her financial position that need looking at. Obviously the pension is one of them, but they will all roll into each other, really.
Now, and over the next few weeks we're going to be having a closer look at what you've got and what you'd like to have. But you do have with-profit bonds, and Paul, you're wondering whether, well, Janet and I are wondering whether she should increment them. What does that mean, increment them?
Okay, that basically means increase, as in pay more in, save more, provide more into the original investment to allow for obviously higher returns in the future.
So how have they been performing to date? Are you happy with their performance? Or
Very happy and very comfortable with the whole scenario with them, and would be happy to invest more
Are you a cautious investor?
I used to be, and but I'm not anymore. I think I've got to the stage now where I've got a bedrock of fairly cautious savings and pensions provisions. And I do have some money that I'd like to be a bit flighty with.
Do you consider equity ISAs to be a bit flighty? I mean, what do you think of that, Paul, considering the current market conditions where equities are concerned?
Yeah, you could reverse that though and look on ISAs as quite a good time to buy, because obviously there has been a storm recently with the stock market, but it does mean that ISAs are particularly good value at the moment. And I would say that that is an area that Janet wishes to look into. So not only is the pension provision an area that we need to look into, but also ISAs as well. And you're particularly interested, Janet, in stocks and shares ISAs.
I am, yes, because it does have that flighty element. I think that I would be interested in.
Is there a particular sector, technology, or
I have
traditional water mining?
I find technology a bit dull, really, from the point of view of just observing it myself. But you know, I'm not a fool if that was going to be the good performer. I'm quite concerned about, I don't know what the correct term is, but the politically correct investment. But there is a term, and I can't think of what it is.
Environmental, ethical investment.
Ethical investment is the one. Yeah, I would be quite keen to stay with something ethical.
Paul, how ethical would it be for Janet to be thinking about taking a new mortgage out now? I mean, what are the implications of doing so at the age of 50?
Okay, well it is true that it is more difficult to obtain a mortgage when you're approaching 50 or 50. One of the main factors to bear in mind, of course, is being able to support the payments of the mortgage after retirement. Now, some lenders will not loan any monies at all to someone that will be going into their retirement unless they have the provision to pay for the mortgage thereafter.
You've talked quite a lot about pension provision now that, well, you're not 50 yet, but you soon will be. Is it all in order there, Paul, or do Janet's pension need a bit of fortification?
It does. We briefly spoke before about Janet's pension and the need to top it up on a regular basis, and she also has a lump sum of money that she's looking at investing. And we're going to be looking really whether she should be investing in the pension, the ISA, topping up the with-profit bond. But of course the main factor, and very, very important, is not to put all your eggs in one basket.
Do you mind a bit of study?
No.
No, because I think we'll have to set a bit of homework because there's an awful lot to be getting through the next few weeks. So what's the first case study, the first bit of homework that we should give Janet?
Okay, well first of all we need to see all your policy documents.
If you can find it. I'm making a note of it, yeah.
Also, with the pension side of things, there's a lot of implications with stakeholder. So if you could find out, Janet, from your employer, what he intends to do with regard to stakeholder, whether he wishes to make payments into the scheme at all, and then we can look at Janet's pension provision in more detail.
There you go, I've written that all down for you. Janet and Paul, thank you very much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Well, welcome back to 50 Plus. Well, let's get straight down to business and meet financial expert Paul Banfield and Janet Riddlesdale. Today we're going to be focusing on equity ISAs and with-profits bonds. Janet, we gave you so much homework last time, but it's been graft and no play.
It's been awful.
Has it been
Terrible.
dreadful?
Dreadful.
But
I
have you
managed.
you managed? Have you got an ISA yet?
No, not yet. We're still looking and talking about that.
I see. Is it a difficult issue or is it too much choice?
No, not really, because basically the homework you gave me was to hand over my pension policies to Paul, which I've done and which he's looking at, and to investigate what my employer's role is going to be in stakeholder. We're just now getting down to the nitty and gritty of the ISAs.
Before we get right down to the nitty and gritty of the ISAs, all the information that Janet's managed to dig out of a loft, does it make sense? Is there anything that she should have been keeping an eye on with greater regularity, or is it all there?
Well, the pension certainly, as I mentioned before, needs updating. One of the areas that we'll be looking into first will be the ISA side of things. And then moving on to the pension, Janet particularly likes the idea of ethical ISAs, and the new title for that really is socially responsible.
That's smashing. Well, let's have a look at these ISAs then. What type of ISAs should Janet be looking at?
Janet's very interested in stocks and shares ISAs, so we obviously need to look at her risk profile. She is prepared to be a bit flighty with regard to the ISA on this occasion. So that's the areas that we'll be concentrating on, the fund, and obviously a socially responsible ISA.
Well, it sounds wonderful, but there are charges. I mean, how much are you prepared to pay? What are the charges involved? Do you know?
I haven't got a clue, really. That's for Paul to comment on. You know, I accept that everybody has to make a living through what they do. What I couldn't bear the thought of is being ripped off, so that's why you have an independent financial advisor, to make sure you're not ripped off.
Well, there you go. Don't rip her off. What fund should Janet be looking at?
Well, the charges involved in ISAs are a very important matter. One of the things to bear in mind, of course, is that performance is also a very important factor. So we're looking at both charges and performance in order for me to source an ISA for Janet that is suitable for her risk profile and her needs. And different companies have different charges. As I mentioned earlier, performance is also taken into account.
Now, would you be, if you got the ISA of your dreams and it was socially sound and ethically okay, would you be wanting to put into it on a monthly basis? Would you be prepared to do that?
Yes, I've only just found out that you can do that. I thought you had to whack it all in as a lump sum, and I think it's a very attractive option if you want to start doing that and you don't have a lump sum. At least you can begin. I mean, up to quite a substantial contribution a month, I understand. And whilst that might not be an option this year, it could well be something that I carry on with next year.
So it sounds pretty committed. What would happen if, well, we saw you planting earlier on, what would happen if you've got a rusty fork, you got gangrene, it spread septicemia and you died? What would happen? What would happen to Janet's ISA if she passed away?
Well, the value of the ISA at the time would obviously be closed and it would form part of Janet's estate.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
So for people that want to find out a little bit more about ISAs, I've got this very flash brochure here. I don't know who produces it, but what is this, and tell us a bit about...
Yeah, that's our quarterly financial newsletter. Explains in detail ISAs and many other issues. And obviously viewers are welcome to have a copy.
And the website is?
The website address, they can visit us on our website and visit the inquiry page, and we would send them a copy of the financial news sheet.
Super. Well, we've discussed ISAs, we've discussed that very flashy brochure, but what about with profits bonds? When we spoke 2 weeks ago, you were interested in that. Have you incremented your with profits bond yet?
I'm almost on the point of doing that. I just wanted to be sure that I'd be better incrementing rather than going for another bond altogether, because as you may recall, Paul's expression on the last show and frequently thereafter has been not to put all your eggs in one basket, and I just wanted to make sure that by incrementing my current bond I wasn't doing the same. So it's his expert advice on that.
Paul, quickly remind us what incrementing means, and is the bond tax-free?
Well, incrementing the bond is saving more, increasing the original investment. It would be better in Janet's case to increment her existing Prudential bond on the basis that they're offering her a higher allocation rate for increasing the bond than she would actually receive on the marketplace looking at another one. But everyone must look at it on an individual basis, and that's what we do as financial advisors, obviously. So in Janet's case, yes, it would be best to increment the existing bond. And with regard to the bond, is it tax-free? It grows within a fund that the company pays tax at basic rate. So a basic rate taxpayer would not be liable to any further taxation.
Well, Paul and Janet, unfortunately we've run out of time, but I was going to say what would happen to the bond if Janet would die, but I think we'll just let's not talk about that any longer. We look forward to seeing you in the next few weeks. Thank you. Welcome back to 50 Plus. Well, let's get straight down to business and meet financial expert Paul Banfield and Janet Riddlesdale. Today we're going to be talking about socially responsible funds and focusing on Janet's mortgages. But first, Janet, I was really soft on you last week. I completely forgot to give you homework. But you're very tenacious and you're very self-assured and independent, and you've actually done some work since we last met.
Yes, I mean, I didn't take advantage of your good nature. We have now incremented my with profits bond. That is now done, and we've tied up the ISA.
So what type of ISA was it? Can you remember?
Socially responsible, and the name of the fund was, Paul?
That was with Jupiter was the name of the company. The fund was their ecology fund, very socially responsible. In fact, Jupiter have gone one stage further with this particular fund, and it looks into companies that actually help the environment rather than just actually invested on a socially responsible basis.
So would that be, we're talking about recycling companies, or is it, you know, not as apparent as that?
All across the board, but particularly looking at companies, they're actively seeking companies that are actually improving the environment rather than just companies that are ethical with regard to their business activities.
But Janet and I want to know, does this give good returns? We might feel a lot better and a lot greener and a lot healthier, but we want to make some money.
It's true. It's interesting to note that the average unit trust has been outperformed by the average green socially responsible fund by about 14% in the last year.
So are you happy with that? Did Paul give you a choice, or were you just told?
We looked at various options, and I particularly like this one because it's proactive in its social responsibility as opposed to being just passively investing. And the greedy part of me, of course, loved the fact that I wasn't going to sacrifice profit for being green. So very happy, can't wait to start monitoring it.
So when Paul and you were doing your research and when you were looking at all the funds that were available, was the literature easily understandable, or did you really need Paul to go through the jargon for you?
It's a combination. You start off thinking, oh, this is very, you know, I can do this. And then you hit something and you think, I need a proper person to look at this. So, because, and Paul's nearby as my IFA, so of course you get straight on the phone and make him work for his money, basically. So,
yeah. So well, you're an intelligent woman, but
yeah.
Obviously there are some clauses where we need you, Paul.
Yeah.
Well, he says, I'd like to think so.
Courses, isn't it, really? I wouldn't want to make all the decisions without some proper professional advice.
And in terms of your mortgage, I mean, did you really feel, Paul, that Janet needed help here in terms of a mortgage? I mean, what's to be done? Is it not paid off yet, or...?
Janet currently is looking into a mortgage. She's not in that position currently. We're looking at different lenders. Obviously, there are complications approaching 50 or for people in their 50s with regard to finding a mortgage suitable for them. It's true to say that it's a lot easier now than it was a few years ago. Lenders are being very sympathetic, and most lenders do not have a problem providing there's income to support the mortgage after retirement.
So why have you waited so late? I mean, did you live rent-free for a while, have a sugar daddy, lived at home?
No, I've been looking for a sugar daddy for a long time. It's just a combination of circumstances, really, culminating in the last 10 years of living in a fabulous flat with a very reasonable rent. And it's just, you just put off the evil day, don't you, for when you take on all that millstone of the mortgage. But there are things now which make me think, well, maybe I should bite the bullet. I mean, I'm still paying a very low rent, and that is low compared to a mortgage repayment that I would have to pay. So
You're a very brave lady, but is it going to be difficult, Paul, for Janet to get a mortgage?
It's actually not difficult. It's more finding the lender that's suitable for Janet. One of the factors to bear in mind is how will Janet wish to repay the mortgage. Capital repayment certainly would seem the favourite for people approaching 50 or in their 50s. There's lots of other factors as well. There's discounted, capped, fixed rates. So someone really needs to take professional advice with regard to a mortgage, very important decision.
So in terms of life cover, I won't talk about morbidity, we talked about that last time, but how does Janet have to, does she have to affect life cover?
Well, no, is the answer to that. Mortgages are moving forward. There's been a lot of bad press with regard to banks and building societies insisting on their products, which obviously is not a good thing. They have now moved forward. Janet would not need to affect a life policy in order to get a mortgage, but obviously may be advisable. Everyone's individual circumstances needs to be taken into account.
Everything taken into account, but do you foresee that Janet's going to have any problems getting life cover?
She wouldn't have any problems. It comes down to health, basically, and that is all.
Are you ready to bite the bullet?
I don't know. It's going to take a lot of thinking about, because you know it's a commitment, and it's a big step to be taking at my age. I mean, at sort of like 23, it's much, you're not so worried about that sort of thing. Well, I'm a bit bit squeamish about it, I have to say.
It's all right. Well, you've got your right-hand man there. But now that we've deconstructed not only your life but your finances, so we're reconstructing you like the bionic woman.
I wish.
So we'll talk next week about what happened to the mortgage situation. Is there anything else that you want Paul to do for you? I'm sending Paul homework this time.
Yeah, good. The final thing really to look at, well, there's two things. One is the pension situation, because I feel, and Paul agrees, or is it Paul feels and I agree, that I need to top up the contribution pretty smartly to whack a bit more in. And I do have an endowment coming out in the summer to coincide with my 50th birthday party, hopefully, and I can spend it all on alcohol. But because I need something to replace it to take me up at least to retirement, and it's a question of what sort we go for and where I can watch its progress.
Very briefly, last word, Paul. Is she an easy client to deal with, and is everything going to plan?
Very easy. It is going to plan. And I'm pleased that I've been set some homework.
Very good, and I think you're going to get invited to the 50th birthday party as well. Thank you very much. Well, that's all we've got time for today, but do get in touch. If you need any help, our email address is 50plus@themoneychannel.co.uk, or write to us at 50plus@themoneychannel. Princess Court, Wapping Lane, London, E1W 2DA. See you tomorrow. Goodbye. Welcome back to the show. Now joining us for the last time is Paul Banfield and Janet Riddlesdale. Janet, I won't wish you a fond farewell yet, because we do have bits and pieces of your financial jigsaw to piece together. And last week we did mention very briefly a mortgage, but when we talked about mortgage, we made an appeal for a sugar daddy who, you know, might perhaps offer to put you up, and there was a huge response, but unfortunately they are gentlemen of the old school who watch our programme, and they'll court you and date you, but they won't put you up yet. So how does that affect your mortgage plans then?
Well, it's devastated my plans, of course, because I'd banked on a positive response. So really all I'm left with is the alternative to hang on for another year. Seriously, I'm going to think about it for another year and see what my personal and financial circumstances are in a year's time, and think about it again.
Well, it's a good song title, Just Another Year. But
Just another year.
But Paul, do you think that she's being wise? Do you think Janet's being wise by leaving it a year?
She is wise. Obviously, a mortgage is one of the biggest things that individuals actually undertake under the umbrella of financial provision, or in fact borrowing. To be sure about what she's going into and to feel confident is the main